Number 22 LSU, 4.5-point favorite against Florida. The over-under I have is 11.8 yards per carry for DJ Lagway. It's pretty high, Will. It's pretty high.
That's so disrespectful.
That is what LSU is allowing to quarterbacks since Marcel Reed stepped onto that football field in College Station. Yeah, 21 carries, 247 yards, 7 rushing touchdowns by quarterbacks against LSU in that 5.5 quarter stretch. Yikes. Basura. Triple basura. I'm trying right now. Claire is just learning the word trash, and she's got some bilingual stuff. She says agua instead of water. With the way that they teach her at daycare. And so she has a few Spanish words that she'll say instead of English words. I am really trying to make basura instead of trash a thing in our household. It's been difficult. She gets trash. Basura, I get a very puzzled look. So we're trying. LSU defense. I'll show her a picture of that.
Basura. To at least go with that house or something, because I'd be right there with you. Anyway, yeah, man. You know what's funny? And I texted you this, and like I get some emotional hedge or whatever, but it's like the vibes felt kind of off, like the day before, or the day of, and then I am like, okay, Paul Mapinga's starting. It's raining pretty hard, and then I'm like, what needs to happen for Alabama to win this game? I'm like, they need to realize that Jalen Milroe can run.
Yep.
And
Will texted me day of, by the way.
Yeah.
Will texted me day. I've never gotten a text from you day of saying vibes are bad.
Yeah.
Vibes are really, really bad. I do not feel good about this. I know that we both said on the preview pod we think LSU was going to beat Alabama. Will texted me midday, and I think that was I let you be. I let you be in the moment, be present. I wasn't going to just troll you or anything like that, because obviously I was on the record with an LSU pick. You were at least on the record with me in my book saying vibes are bad. This is not a good setup.
It was the easiest process of elimination ever. I was like, we got this fake Tiger. We're starting Paul Mapinga. Our backup interior lineman's hurt. DJ Chester is like the worst interior offensive lineman on PFF. Okay, what needs to go well? What do we need to do well? Well, we need to have different players on the interior, and we need to have like basically different coaching for gaps and run scheme. What does Alabama need to do? They need to realize Jalen Milroe is fast.
Will, can I ask you a question? Okay, and this I will troll you with this.
Okay.
How much NIL money do you think everyone could have pooled together to go back retroactively and get Dominic Williams to be worth the money that Oklahoma gave them?
You know, and knowing Brian Kelly, we would have had some type of locker room scandal. I talked about
True.
that at the time, where now we got a bidding war and we're calling the Canes guys. So, yeah, that's the crazy thing. I have been pretty down the middle of this LSU team. I said they were not going to fool me going into the A&M game, and then to beat Arkansas, which is apparently not that impressive. And yeah, it's the mobile quarterbacks, man. It's the fact that LSU is soft, which is crazy considering they're starting Major Burns and Jordan Gilbert, whose whole job is hit people. Last year, the only thing Major Burns did right when we gave up like 15 of 17 first downs or third downs is like, this isn't right, to be clear. Like, this is not, like, I'm not giving this crew. But, Major Burns is like, we're going to bring the physicality. I lowered my head on Milroe. I'm going to show you can't come in here and push us around. All we needed was for him to be that physical against Jalen Milroe and be like, hey, put a lick on him. Let him know he can't do this in your house. Dude. There's that clip of him just, like, backing up. I'm like, Major Burns, why are you here? Are you trying to get, like, a master's degree? Like, what?
Major Burns had some tough film. Not to dog the guy too much. He had I think, wasn't it Fowler who called in real time his missed tackle of Lenore Sellers on that long run he had in that game? And Fowler, you never hear a play-by-play guy break it down that way with somebody just making a total whiff on a play like that. It has not been the best year. It just even touching Jalen Milroe.
Sage Ryan. I don't know which
it might have been
touchdown
Sage Ryan. Yeah,
but I remember it was like the first touchdown. I think that was
right.
Sage Ryan. But
I think you're right. Okay.
Either
My
or,
bad.
you know, or no, there's not a good LSU safety. Pick one. It could have been Jordan Gilbert too. So point being, you know, and it was funny. You bring up Lenore Sellers, really good point, because when he got hurt, that game changed. They were not stopping Lenore Sellers. He had like a 75-yard rushing guy. So I think we've seen what's wrong with LSU. I say that to say, can't stop running quarterback. Super soft. Interior offensive line, basura. Interior defensive line, also basura. Coaching, gap discipline, not good. Boom.
Well, I think Florida, I think anybody with two eyeballs can see those exact points and understand that that's just who LSU is at this point of the year. You're probably not getting a whole lot of reinforcements. The fact that the A&M performance and the Bama performance had a bye week sandwiched in between, one would think Florida's game plan is fairly obvious. My guess is that DJ Lagway plays. That is a guess, okay? We're recording this before availability reports on Wednesday. That is just the vibe that I got with the pre-Texas prep that he went through with the individual work and with the fact that they had him dressed in pregame, even though they knew that they weren't going to play him based on the conversations that they were having with him. I could be wrong on that, but I'm doing this breakdown if he plays because, with all due respect to Aiden Warner, the Yale transfer, I won't bank on him being the first quarterback to beat LSU since 2018. This is a little bit trickier than it might appear for Billy Napier, okay? On one hand, we just laid out the obvious blueprint for success. It could not be a more obvious flaw than what LSU has right now. Run the ball with DJ Lagway, make LSU show that it actually can put a hand on a quarterback after Marcel Reed and Jalen Milroe got every blade of grass that they want. It seems obvious. Billy needs a big-time win. Maybe stopping the bleeding against LSU means seeing if LSU can stop the bleeding against the quarterback run game. But there is risk. There is great risk in that, okay? And if these were normal circumstances, go out there, play football, don't think twice about it, all right? You have your personnel. Don't think about what's going to happen 3 months from now, 4 months from now. Your quarterback of the future is coming off a non-contact injury that he suffered trying to make something happen with his legs, okay? I don't think we see Lagway run it a ton, and I think that might be to Florida's detriment. I just have this thought in the back of my mind, and maybe I'm thinking too much of what Aaron Murray said before the Florida-Georgia game, that they were really going to try and be careful with his rushing use, knowing what's behind him, knowing they don't want to get him hurt. And that was before, obviously, he had any sort of injury concern. So I do wonder if we're looking up and wondering why Florida has maybe not had more of the quarterback design runs, and it's not an offense that looks like it's clicking on all cylinders. So I'm not sure if that is going to be the story of the game, but I think that Florida is going to be in a tough spot in what should be a bounce back game for Garrett Nussmeier, because last week against Texas, that depleted secondary that had 3 starting defensive backs out very much looked like it had 3 starting defensive backs out. We saw Quinn Ewers kind of light them up, albeit a better schemer, better weapons, probably at least better weapons Texas has than LSU. That's a little bit debatable, I guess. But how does this not turn into a big Kyron Lacey game? That's what I wonder. How does this not become a game in which he just dominates matchups left and right? Because he's had these moments in more of halves and not full games in which you have wondered who's going to stop that guy. We saw it at the end of the Ole Miss game, obviously, where he just kind of takes over. He can take over and have those spurts. I think he can do it for a full game in this one with the matchup. Maybe LSU just shows up totally defeated after it very likely watched its playoff hopes end. We'll get to that in a second here. But I'm going to pick LSU somewhat reluctantly to bounce back and beat Florida for the 6th consecutive year that would be. I'm going to go LSU 35, Florida 28 shootout.
Yeah, that's interesting about Lagway, because I'm looking actually at his high school stats right now, and he was like a solid runner in high school, but I think we've seen a lot of these guys like Jameis, where it's like, okay, well, you're still, compared to high school kids, you're so much better of an athlete. That's a lot easier for you to run. In college, I haven't really seen that like dual threat, like jump off the page athleticism with Lagway. So to your point, even if he was healthy, I'm not sure that would be the game plan. But him being hurt, yeah, I mean, especially with that non-contact injury, especially with your coach getting extended, you just plant wrong and turn, and it's
not extended. Vote of confidence, two different things.
Good point. He didn't get the Sam Pittman graphic yet, so we'll wait on that. But point being, basically your coach is not coaching for his job unless he really, poops the bed. So point being, there's no reason to go do something that you haven't done before with a guy who hasn't looked super comfortable with it. And the thing about Lagway is like, I just had to go verify his stats, because watching him, he does look a bit statuesque. I'm not saying that can't be part of his game, but you can often see the guys who trust their athleticism versus the guys who trust like their arm strength or their pride. He has often been a guy who will trust like his arm strength. Like if somebody's coming after him, he'll just kind of yeet it and see where it goes. Whereas the more mobile guys will tend to just take off a la early Jalen Milroe or the other day Jalen Milroe. So point being, like, I think that that's never going to be, not never. I think that for this season for sure that ship is kind of sailed as far as him being a mobile guy. Now that being said, this game presents a very interesting kind of inflection point for both of these fan bases because okay, speaking of people named DJ Pickett, the like number one corner, number two corner, depending on who you look at in the class, 5-star that LSU got, is going to be at this game on the Florida sidelines. Now, LSU fans would say they just want to go watch LSU, which is fair, right? But at the same time, this is kind of one of those inflection points like we talked about for Billy Napier, where if he can win this game, because you saw it for the first kind of like half of the season, Florida fans, their names were all fire Billy Napier. They were like, we're not building anything. We can't recruit. We can't do whatever. This is the game that if you want Florida to kind of be taken seriously and start building something for real, you got to win this game. Like straight up, you got to win this game because this is the most beatable. Well, hold on. This is the third most beatable LSU team you could have lost to.
Vulnerable is maybe the better way to phrase it.
Yeah. I mean, those teams in 20 and 21 were bad. This team is better than those teams. There's no Jaden Daniels walking through that door for sure. So this is like middle of the pack. That being said, this is not a team, even in like last year's game, the game before with Brian Kelly, that the defense was just like awesome, lights out. You know what I'm saying? This was that game that Jaden Daniels had to have dang near 600 yards of total offense to comfortably win that game when he probably shouldn't have been in the fourth quarter based on how things have played out. So the thing that I'm worried about is Nussmeier, just to be honest with you. This is another guy that we thought we knew who he was about halfway through the year. I was telling you, statistically, Nussmeier, whatever. If Nussmeier plays like Carson Beck, might have problems.
Yeah, I agree. And look, if Florida's defense shows up and doesn't look like a total doormat, which I think early on they did some things well against Texas, and then you were quickly able to realize this is a very overmatched group right now, and this is different than who they were even a few weeks earlier, then who knows? Maybe this does turn into a game in which Florida can get LSU. What we know for LSU, there is still a doomsday scenario. If you saw the doomsday scenario that Greg McElroy broke down on his show, he did a really good job of breaking this down. That LSU can get into the SEC championship, perhaps the college football playoff with 3 losses, despite the fact that last week, Alabama, LSU felt very much like an elimination game. Obviously, LSU has to win out. Okay, so that's most important here. Georgia has to beat Tennessee. Alabama, easier to believe, right? We'll get to that in a bit here. Alabama, Ole Miss, and Mizzou all have to win out to get to 10-2.
I believe 2 of those.
Yeah. Okay. And then here's the other kicker. Either Arkansas upsets Texas or Auburn upsets Texas A&M. Just one of those 2 things has to happen to make sure that when Texas and Texas A&M play in the regular season finale, at least one of those teams has 2 conference losses. In that scenario, Will, Alabama, 10-2 overall, 6-2 in conference play. Mizzou, 10-2 overall, 6-2 in conference play. Ole Miss, you get it, 10-2 overall, 6-2 in conference play. Georgia, same thing. Tennessee, same thing. LSU, 9-3 overall, but 6-2 in conference play. And then either Texas or Texas A&M will be 6-2 in conference play at best. That's doomsday. So is it fun knowing that LSU has doomsday possibilities and can just blow this whole thing up and cause the SEC to self-combust?
Yeah, as long as it doesn't require me to watch more of this LSU team. Like if you're telling me, okay, I got to go watch a playoff game, I got to go watch the SEC championship, I'm not interested in that. I am interested in ruining another team's chances, a la the Atlanta Falcons last Sunday. I have kind of, now I'm all for that. I just, I said, especially after this last game, I'm like, let's just sim to the offseason, guys. Let's not embarrass ourselves. We could beat Florida for the millionth time in a row. That'd be great. But let's just not do anything stupid, a la Brian Kelly flipping out on referees. We would never do that. So yeah, I think it's super fun. I think that there are a lot of equally matched teams this year. I just am not putting any more hope into this LSU team.
But you're picking LSU to win this game, right?
Picking LSU to win this game.
Okay.
And like I said, this is a unique opportunity that this team, like Brian Kelly, could further embarrass us, because this was the one team. I started to make the joke about nobody's got a cupcake week. Well, most years this was one for us. I don't know. They might come out and smoke us too. But based on everything that I think I know, Florida doesn't really even have. I'm not even going to say that, because some of this stuff is just game by game. I think that the stuff that Florida has been good at on defense hasn't been like massive interior pressure. And now we can start asking the question, how did LSU handle Ole Miss the way they did? Goodness, because they look like a sieve against these last two teams. Again, makes more sense against A&M. But point being, I don't really think like personnel-wise, Florida has it on, at least on defense. Now, again, coaching can be all of this. This could be a game where Billy Napier just eats Brian Kelly's lunch. I could possibly see that. But that being said, the logical part of my brain says that your score is about accurate, and it might even get into the 40s, honestly, because I don't see. I started saying I don't see either of these teams getting a stop, but I mean, if Nussmeier plays like that, that's an easy way. So I think it's going to be a chaotic, fun game. I don't want to see Lagway run at all, but yeah, I think this is going to be another sloppy, fun LSU Florida game.